morning. Then I'll quit telling funny jokes or something. How long is it going to go?
We're actually on YouTube now for the pre-show. I give them an extra 5 minutes.
Yeah.
So we just now went up on YouTube. So if you're watching on YouTube, hello. Good to see you. And actually, I haven't put out the link, so I need to do that.
And then the YouTube will last through the whole show, even after you're just listening and not participating anymore.
Yeah, it actually...
Whenever that is. Stay as long as you like. We don't mind.
It actually ends up being my backup because sometimes Blog Talk Radio will do some funny things to me.
Mm-hmm.
And if I have it up on YouTube as well, then it...
Oh, you got a backup, yeah. I've used, another program to back it up with some people. Audacity and different things like that.
Yeah, I record on Audacity, and then I kind of clean up the audio, and that's what goes out on the feed. That'll go out tomorrow. So the live show is actually recorded and then posted.
How long is your live show?
About 2 hours. How long do you think you'll be able to stick around?
Well, as long as you need.
Okay, because and actually they're only getting half a live show today, so because we actually had the opportunity to record with Dave Silverman today.
Oh, sure. So
I recorded an interview with him. It's about 40 minutes long, so.
Yeah, our format is way different today.
Yeah, it's just we're winging it today.
Wigging it.
No worries, I can stay as long as you need.
Awesome. And oh, by the way, I'll probably say it again when we're officially on the air, but I love the book.
Oh, thank you so much. You just made my day.
I have been listening to it on the train for the last 2 days, so.
I listened to
the audio just came out. I mean, it was a year ago that the paperback came out, so it takes a long time sometimes.
Yeah, Bill and I don't have any time to actually sit down and read a book anymore. So
tell me about it. I got to be doing 3 things at a time, or I'm not productive.
Audible's the best thing on the planet. And yeah, I started listening to your book on the way to work yesterday. So
great.
How
is the recording? I haven't had a chance to listen to it even myself yet.
It's excellent.
Great.
It's
Pitchstone found her, so
she's good.
She's very good. You can hear the way she feels. It's really cool.
Oh, great! I'll listen to that when I'm weeding this summer.
And it's Garsht, right? That's the correct pronunciation?
Perfect.
I always ask because, sometimes you read someone's name for a long time, but you never hear it.
Yeah, and the Facebook name Gorder is just my maiden name that I put on Facebook in case I got some old friends who are looking me up.
Yeah, I know how that is. Mine says...
Yeah, we thought about calling, when we got married, Gorder Garst, but it sounds like give me a brewski and hold the mayo, and I'll have 2 Gorder Garsts. So.
All right. And it's Women Beyond Belief. And I'm calling it a book about feminism and atheism. Would that be correct? How would you
yes.
want me to introduce it? Okay. Okay, good. And we are about ready to go. How long we got? We got 2 minutes. Oh, chat room. I never put up a chat room.
I would probably say women and atheism.
Okay. Yeah, you're right.
I just wrote a blog post today about maybe the word feminism needs to be changed. So let's say women and feminism.
And there was actually one of the essays, and I had the only thing about the audiobook, it's hard to attribute who did the essay because you heard it like 20 minutes ago and you can't flip back.
Right.
But Sylvia.
Yeah, I think one of the ladies said she kind of rejects that label.
Yes.
Yeah. So women in atheism.
Women in atheism.
Chat room is up. Gonna go now. We connect to Blog Talk.
But it's gone now.
You might.
It's okay now.
Yeah, let me see if I can.
Start your show now. Press 1 to hear important instructions.
That's really quiet.
Speak to customer service. Press 3.
No, it's okay. It was just there for a minute.
Yeah.
To start your show now, press 1.
Your show is scheduled to start in 1 minute, 14 seconds.
Not yet. 1 minute, 30 seconds. Let me get on the right screen. Recording is going, so we're good.
So yeah, Karen, we're just gonna go silent, you and I and Bill, until after our song plays, and then Bill will introduce us
30 seconds until
when
showtime.
he's done.
It's really quiet.
It is really quiet.
Strange.
Maybe it's one of your things.
No, it's Blog Talk.
Your show will go live in 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. Blog Talk Radio.
Science and technology. Marie, she's the stuff the scientists don't wanna be. Women don't know Nobel's left and right. Physicists blend into overnight. Got a microscope in her pocket, ready to love the brain. Asparadium and polonium, she discovers them and gives them their name. Marie Curie.
Welcome to the Bar Room. I'm Bill here with my co-host Susie.
Hi, everybody.
We've got an exciting show for you tonight, and I'm really hoping that you'll be able to actually hear it. Blog Talk seems a little funny. That intro sounded quiet to us. I hope it sounded okay to you. Our show tonight, we have actually not one, but two fabulous guests. We're going to have Karen Garst, the author of Women Beyond Belief, a great new book been out in the last year, about women in atheism. I have personally been listening to the audio version recently. I'm loving it. And later, you're only getting half the live show because we actually got to record about 40 minutes with Dave Silverman.
We let Dave come.
We
and
let
talk.
Dave come back. Yeah. And he's going to, so you get 40 minutes of that at the end. And we're going to skip the Bible segment since you're getting plenty of pre-recorded crap this time. Anyways, Susie, it's been a while.
Yes, it's been a while.
And if you can't hear any bit of this, because again, we're having some Blog Talk problems, the YouTube link is up on our Facebook and Twitter right now. You can click on the YouTube, you can look at me and Susie, and that works fine.
And Bill's going to monitor whether we can hear in the chat room and whether we can hear on YouTube. So that we can tell.
Sure, I will.
Because we are just technical geeks.
We're wizards. We're like Harry Potter.
So,
if you want to call in, you got to call in the first part of the show because, again, we're replaying your recording for the second half. And the number is 713-955-0575. Nobody calls in, but we got to do that. Anyway, let's welcome our first guest because I'm excited.
I'm excited.
I'm totally excited here. Please welcome Karen Garst to the Bar Room. Welcome, Karen.
Thank you very much for having me.
Now, Karen, tell us a little bit about your backstory before we get into the book. I do believe I read somewhere that you weren't always an activist. Is that correct?
Oh, that's true. I was raised in North Dakota, in the Lutheran Church. Yeah, sure, you betcha.
Yeah.
And,
wow, I'm on an episode of Fargo. This is awesome.
Oh, it's so cold there. You have no idea. And went to a Lutheran college, Concordia College in Moorhead, Minnesota. And it was quite interesting because my first course, Religion 101, talked about the different oral strains of the Old Testament. Oh, wow, I've never heard about that. And then I went to graduate school, and really, after I left college, I didn't attend church much. For me, church was knowing everybody there, who sat in the pew in front of you, and being single and walking into a church where I didn't know anybody wasn't very appealing. But I did finally join a church and got married, and the last church we attended was a couple decades ago, very it was called New Thought Church, living in Richmond Center in Wilsonville. And, kind of all paths to God. It was kind of like a Unitarian Universalist. But when it went belly up, we quit going and slept in on Sunday. And I didn't even think of becoming an activist. I didn't join any groups or anything.
Huh. And what happened?
What happened was I was having lunch with a friend of mine, and she's an author, and she said, oh, you're retired, you should write a book. And I said, well, the only thing I could get pissed about was religion. And that was because 2 days earlier, this was in 2014, on June 30th, the United States Supreme Court, in a 5-4 decision in Burwell v. Hobby Lobby, stated that this craft store, because its owners had certain religious beliefs, didn't need to provide certain forms of birth control under the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare.
Right.
Because they didn't feel that was appropriate. So the court said, under its reasoning, that there was a way to do that with fewer restrictions, and the government ended up paying for it itself. But I was incensed. I mean, we fought for these things in the 60s and 70s. What is happening? And if you are a company and you enter the public sphere, then you can't discriminate. I mean, you couldn't say, gee, our religious views prevent us from serving African Americans. That wouldn't go. So why can you say your religious beliefs prevent you from providing health care to women?
Right.
So that's what started it.
I remember when that decision came out. I think we did a show on it.
We
actually.
did.
And Susie was livid. I think I put my mic on mute and just let you rant for 20 minutes. And it was cathartic. It was a good thing.
It is a good thing. And I was pretty enraged myself when that came out.
And really, that's kind of what it is. It's funny because the company can have religious beliefs and impose them on its employees. That made no sense to me.
Exactly. And we've had a case in Oregon with a bakery where they didn't want to serve same-sex couples. Like, they didn't want to bake a cake for them. And my attitude is, if you're going to bake cakes for the public, you're going to bake them for everybody. You're on the sidewalk. You're downtown. This is the public sphere. Nobody's making you bake cakes at all. You can stay home and bake all the cakes you want. And you can give them away, and you can choose who you give them away to. But once you enter the public sphere and have a business, then you have to deal with everyone. That's the law.
The correlation between the Black movement and the gay movement, there's such a correlation between the two of them, because the Black movement in the 60s went through much of what the LGBT community is going through now, with nothing being accepted and nothing being like, because you're this certain group, you're discriminated against. And now that's okay, but this new thing isn't. So unfortunately, I'm just kind of waiting it out. And like in 20 years, people are going to look back and say how stupid they were that they did this to the LGBT community.
We hope.
We hope.
We hope.
We have our fingers crossed, but given recent political issues, I don't know, I'm squeezing them real hard.
Yeah.
That being said, though, I think women have always been screwed. One of
the reasons I wrote the book and restricted it to women was because, there's a lot written by men about atheism. In fact, if you look at the 100 bestsellers on atheism, there are less than 6 written by women. And you're right. Who is most subjugated by virtually all religions? It's women. So if women leave the church, it's over. So why aren't we targeting women?
Right.
And I'm glad you brought the book up, because even as a man, I've been listening to your book on the audio, and I think this is a much needed voice in our movement, because I am learning so much, from just listening, and the collection of essays and these different women's perspectives. There's a time to listen, and I think you've given us that opportunity, which I think is really great. So why don't you talk a little bit about what's in there? What's in that book?
Well, the book is a series of essays, and they are from women who are 18 to 70. Some were born in Europe, Africa, South America, and they they're just come from all different faiths within the Judeo-Christian rubric. There aren't any ex-Muslims, etc. But my next book, which we can talk about later, does. And each of them, these are personal stories. They tell their personal stories of how they grew up, what they learned, how it influenced them, and what made them leave religion. And some of them are really, you almost want to cry. The first one by Anne Wilcox, she was raised as a fundamentalist, and it was so harsh. She says that, as an example, I was taught not only that I sin, but I am sin. And it took her decades to let go of that, always questioning herself, oh, I did something wrong. And interestingly enough, a few weeks ago, she called me and said, I was sitting at the Oregon coast, and she's around 50 or so, and she said, I had epiphany. I felt good about myself. So that's how damaging and long-lasting religion can be. And there's others who, you know, like me, were raised in a faith that was pretty liberal. I mean, I took science in 9th grade, and we were taught evolution, and I talked to my dad, who was very religious about it, and he was very pro-science. So it wasn't as damaging, I think, but you don't know. I mean, you don't know about that early childhood and always being taught to pray to a man and reading everything about the father's right. How does that influence you subconsciously?
That's true. Very true.
Yeah, I noticed that because we did, I think our second episode was Susie's story. We did your story of coming out and coming to atheism, and it was I listened to Anne's story, and wow, I was like, I sent her a text immediately. I said, you need to start listening to this book right now, because it almost sounded like
she was
post-traumatic stress disorder.
She was kind of, and it was funny because
absolutely.
Anne was, because that's, and unfortunately that's as far as I've gotten in the book, so I can't speak on any of the other ones, but I'm sure they're all just as wonderful. But Anne was talking to me almost about me.
Yeah,
you know?
you're very similar.
I wasn't as, I didn't grow up in as much of a fundamentalist like arena, but her coming out and her coming to realize the whole lightning striking her, I even said that. It's on like many episodes.
Yeah, you were worried about lightning striking you.
Right. I was worried about lightning striking me because I didn't believe anymore. And it really, it was almost tear-jerking at times, like when she was talking about being suicidal and wanting to kill herself and putting the gun in her mouth. I was very moved by that. I've seen people in the same kind of situations that have been so desperate to come to terms with their lack of religion or their religious preference, that's how they feel. And it was very moving.
Yeah, I'll tell you, and as a man, you know, reading these or reading these stories, it gives me some perspective, like a window, because I know what religion does to people and what it's like in different situations, but I never even thought of the fact that it's father, son. You know, it just never occurred to me how that would feel coming from a different perspective, from a woman's perspective.
Like if you were not a father or a son.
You know, and that's good. I mean, it kind of opens, I mean, like, wow, because imagine the feeling that you're not only second class, but you were destined to be second class, and you're going to be second class for eternity. Not even for your life, for eternity. I was actually floored by that. And essay after essay, that theme seemed to keep reading. It was common to younger women, older women. They all experienced that to some degree. And I was floored by it. I was like, you know, that is something that would not hit my radar had it not been for your book, Erin.
Well, thank you very much. One of the things I've done in the last few years is read just a few, like 120 books. And I've done a lot of work reading about early mythology and some of the religions that preceded monotheism. And I think now there is probably some agreement. People will disagree. But early on, people worshipped a mother goddess. And that's totally natural because, you know, as you ponder these questions, what are we here? What are we doing? Everything about the earth is so important. And can you imagine what it was like for Paleolithic men to go, okay, I'm going to go fight this deer, and if I get stabbed, I bleed and I die. But the woman bleeds every month and she doesn't die. And her monthly cycles are the same as the moon cycles. So I think it's natural to assume there was this veneration of gee, and she gives birth and she bleeds and she doesn't die again. And if you look at the Paleolithic, 70% of the figurines are of women. So they've tried to put this together. We know later on, certainly in the Mediterranean, there were a lot of goddesses worshipped. They're still, you know, looking at Celtic cultures where goddesses were worshipped. And then what I look at is, why did monotheism come about? How did it come about? And how did it transform everything about the goddess into something negative?
Because some man was pissed that a girl got all the attention.
Well,
Exactly. I always say it was downhill from agriculture
Right.
and property ownership. But
Well,
if
well,
your
I
viewers
give it
want to
to
see
Paul.
that, if they go to YouTube and Google Faithless Feminist, I have that presentation on my YouTube channel, and they can watch it.
Nice.
actually, we had Shelley Siegel on the show a while back, and she told us some stuff from Hebrew school because we were going through the Bible with her.
Mhm.
And the Asherah poles. Apparently, Yahweh had a wife at some point in ancient Jewish lore. Asherah.
Well, I just wrote a blog about that.
I was amazed by that, right? And
well,
so I think that's where it started, when they started cutting those
Asherah
down.
is, go ahead.
No, go ahead. You're up.
Okay. Asherah was a goddess that was worshipped in Canaan. And you know there are very many different theories about how did the Hebrews form. No, they didn't spend 400 years in Egypt. They very well may have been Canaanites themselves who fled from the sea when there were problems with those cities up into the hill country. But clearly there was worship of Asherah. And Asherah, the word, means pole, and it means the name of this goddess. And you can see in the Old Testament, they've left all of this stuff in about people who were still worshiping Asherah. And they've left all the stuff in that God was part of a divine assembly, so there wasn't monotheism. And then they found a piece of pottery they call a potsherd that had figures on it, and it said Yahweh and his Asherah. So there's a distinct possibility that early on, this Yahweh, this Hebrew God, may have been just like Baal and El and had a wife Asherah, and then slowly but surely it evolved or devolved, as you could say, into monotheism. Karen Armstrong, who's a writer, has hypothesized that it took 600 years for the Hebrews really to become monotheists.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me, because even as a young child being educated in the whole Christianity thing, I never understood, and it didn't make sense to me why God, if there's only one of them, would have a gender. That didn't make sense to you don't have the male without the female. You don't have the female without the male. If it's an entity that there's only one of, in what sense is it male? So it makes a lot more sense when you study into it and learn that, well, okay, it wasn't always that way. The ancient Jews kind of moved away from that. And then, of course, Paul, being the misogynist in chief, who wrote...
Well, and
He's
the
the dude
Jews
that
were
wrote the
the
book,
only
right?
ones who were monotheists.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at the Mesopotamian area in Babylon, and remember the Jews were exiled and spent a couple decades in Babylon, where they were made privy to this Enuma Elish, which is the myth of the Babylonian culture. And in that myth, there are gods and goddesses. But at one point in time, Marduk, one of the male gods, says to his bros there, hey, if you guys make me the top dog, I'm willing to kill Tiamat, who's the female goddess. And they go, yeah, sure, okay. And so that's how monotheism evolved in that culture. So they were exposed to that. And there were other cultures. There was a time in Egypt where there was a monotheistic culture. But I must say, you are very bright to have had that thought, because it never occurred to me growing up.
Yeah, it just seemed weird. If there's only one, then why would it be either one? Why it wouldn't be unisex? It would just be it. Yeah, I always wonder why we didn't refer to God as an it, because there's only one of them. So, but apparently there was more than one as I got older and got educated. That, you know, people have been making up gods everywhere. So,
Exactly. Well, you know, you're all familiar with the pantheon of gods and goddesses, but we never really gave that much thought. But there's a real difference, too, between the Catholic faith and the Protestant faith, because the Catholics, for one reason or another, venerated Mary. And I believe it was because there was so much latent goddess worship that's how they kind of brought women in and brought people in, and they have women saints and everything. And then the Protestants totally eliminated all that.
well,
You know, one of the key misogynists, Martin Luther, I mean, if you read his stuff, it doesn't matter if a woman dies in childbirth. Her only goal was to have a kid anyway.
yeah.
So it made it even more misogynist.
Well, my grandmother always used to tell me, the reason we pray to Mary is because if you want someone to do something, you ask his mother. That was how she explained it to me. And
That's so funny.
that actually made sense to me, because, you know, that's how you get people to do things. You go to their mom.
Yep.
But
Wow, that's funny.
yeah. I grew up Catholic, so.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Well, there's a passage in Jeremiah where the women are ranting because there's a famine, there's a drought, and they say, hey, when we used to pray to the Queen of Heaven, which could be Anath or Asherah, we're not exactly sure, everything was good. So we're going to go back to baking her cakes and praying to her. So even in the text that comes down to us, there's clearly this conflict between male and female.
Right. Well, that seems to be the theme of the Old Testament. I mean, Susie and I, we're skipping it this week, but we do a few chapters of the Bible each week, and we're actually in Jeremiah right now. We just kind of doing a book review on it, and it seems like again and again it's about people doing just what you said. Okay, well, we're going to go back to this other God because, you know, we haven't got any rain.
Right.
So obviously your God's not working. We're going to this
Let's
God.
try this one.
And this is written from the perspective of the followers of this God, saying, okay, you guys are all you're going to be in trouble. We're going to have disasters because, you know, you're not following the right God.
Yeah.
And ironically, that's still happening today if you watch Fox News. You still have people on there saying the same thing. Oh, you're not following God right, so we're going to have a hurricane. You watch.
It's amazing. People will be in a tornado and their house will be missed and say, thank God.
Right.
Well, who brought the hurricane, you know?
Yeah, and they don't get that. And how dare they think that God spared them and killed everybody else?
Yeah, I mean,
Thank you.
wouldn't you hate to be their
Exactly.
neighbors?
Right?
Like, you know, especially if you're like both go to the same church, you know, there's no religious difference.
Yeah.
Oh, what, God likes you better than me?
Yeah, let's say that this person's house is destroyed and this person's house is perfectly fine, and they both go meet up at church on Sunday, and the one's going, oh, thank you, God, for sparing my house, and I bet you the one standing next to him just punch him in the face.
It's amazing.
Well, and the other instance where that occurs is somebody, let's say somebody has a child with a deformity, and they never attribute that to God causing it.
Right.
Or if a child is sick and they take him to the hospital, they take them to the hospital and then say, but we want your prayers. Well, how about the prayers of not making the kid sick in the first place?
I prefer those to the ones that don't.
Right?
You know, we do have, and we've had a problem with that here in Pennsylvania.
Oh, we've had a problem here. I was almost on a jury. I got to the point where they interview you. It's called voir dire. On a case involving the church we have here, where this couple had a child at home and the child died and they didn't call the ambulance. And I wasn't on the jury, but they decided unanimously to convict them. And we've recently had another one just like that.
Yeah, I think I read about that case. And there was one out there in Oregon where a young lady had like a tumor on her face.
Oh, that was a while ago. Yes.
There's been a bunch, but we have a big church here in Philadelphia that does that.
Yeah.
And yeah, we've had a couple of kids just die, and you know, it's ridiculous.
It's funny because I have a friend at work that works with me, and she claims to be Well, she believes in. We got in this whole conversation about how she believes in God, but she's open-minded. And so I was throwing things out at her, you know, and I said, well, your child stops breathing and starts bleeding out her eyes. What do you do? And she said, what do you mean? What do I do? I said, what do you do? And she goes, what? Take him to the hospital. And I said, why don't you just pray?
If that works.
And she said, because I need to take him to the hospital. And I said, exactly. That's exactly the way it is. Because even believers know that praying doesn't work. They do it just because.
When it kind of rolls back into the same thing that Karen initially brought up with Hobby Lobby. Everybody needs to play by the same rules. You know, if you're a parent, you have a responsibility to take your child to the hospital. I don't care about your religion. Pray all you want, but
Take
you
them to the
have
hospital
to
as
play by
well.
the rules. You have a responsibility to get medical care for your kids. If you have a business, you have a responsibility to serve the entire public, or not at all. That's your choice. But it kind of comes down to the same theme of religion wanting special privileges.
Mhm.
Exactly. And that child has rights too.
Exactly.
I mean, that child was born in this country, therefore it has rights. And if there's a problem, it has the right to go to the hospital.
Well, yeah, and it shouldn't be, we shouldn't even be having a debate that letting your child die for religious reasons is okay, but for non-religious reasons it's a crime. In other words, if I'm just too lazy or too stoned or too drunk and I let my child just expire, I'm going to go to jail.
Right.
That's not even a question. Nobody debates that.
But if you sit there and
religion
watch
should not be a
and
get out
say
of jail
that
free card.
if you sit there and watch and say that you prayed,
Right.
then they'll go, oh, okay, that's fine then. It's okay that your child died that way.
Yeah, see, that's
Well, fortunately, in the cases I'm familiar with in Oregon, they've all been convicted.
Yeah, the convictions are pretty prominent here too.
yes, it's good, but a lot of states have laws similar to what we have in Pennsylvania. I'm not sure about Oregon.
It's a stupid law.
Well, it's not child abuse.
Right.
They can be convicted of manslaughter or even murder because they violated those laws. But say a social worker were to find out about it beforehand, in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, by law, they're not even allowed to use the term child abuse if they're denying them medical care for religious reasons.
Yeah, if they see that you're neglecting a child and this child is going to die, they're not allowed to report that as child abuse.
As child abuse. They
have to wait till the
they
child
can take
dies.
action. Well, they can take action on behalf of the child. They can do that. But what they can't do is they can't take any action against the parents.
Right.
Because they didn't do anything wrong until the kid
Oh,
dies.
they can remove the child from the house, but then they can't charge the parents with child abuse?
Yes.
They can remove
That's
them.
not true in Oregon. I would be very, very surprised.
I believe they can remove them for emergency medical care, but then they have to give them back. I mean, yeah. We did a whole show on it a while back, but yeah, it comes down to Christian Science had a lot of influence. I believe it was in the Nixon administration and under Gerald Ford, and they got a lot of these laws passed then, and they kind of just slipped them in. You know, nobody was really paying attention, but they're in a lot of state laws.
I'll have to check that out in Oregon. I dated a Christian Scientist once when I was in grad school, and he said, you have no idea what it's like to feel that every time you get sick, it's your fault.
Right?
Because you didn't do something.
Wow.
But anyway, let me roll this on back to your book, because I do love conversations that go on tangents, but I want to help promote a book. I know it's on Amazon, and it's also on Audible now. Where else can people get it if they want to get a copy?
Barnes and Noble. It's in certain bookstores, but you can get it online, and now you can get the Audible. And I'm happy to read a couple excerpts at some point in time during this interview if you want to give people a little flavor.
Oh, absolutely.
You want me to do that? You want me to read one of
please.
Anne's?
Absolutely. Please.
Okay. And this is a person we were talking about earlier who was raised as a fundamentalist. And 30 years after letting go of religion, she experiences this. As I tried to let my beliefs go, my head seemed far ahead of the rest of me. I would think, that makes no sense. But I would be assailed by intense fear and doubt. I felt all my old fears and beliefs still skulking inside, like the biblical Leviathan, a sea monster that lurked in the deep. I felt wrong, as though I had committed a terrible crime and I was going to be punished. Whenever I got near anything to do with religion, a Christian coworker, a bumper sticker, a debate, or a speaker, something on the internet or the news, even or especially my own family, I went into a tailspin of dread and doubt for days. I kept thinking the fear would diminish, but it went on for months and months. My fear was so ingrained that as I wrestled with my beliefs, I had shadowy nightmares, and I felt like things were creeping up on me in the middle of the night. As I sat in my chair reading, there were times when I involuntarily glanced upward, as if lightning might crash through my ceiling. When I attacked my beliefs about Satan, it felt as if he was in my room with me. This was a complete surprise, not to mention freaky. After 30 years away from my religion, my mind was still being assaulted with irrational fear for disbelieving.
You and Ann need to go have coffee sometime.
That makes
Susie.
so sense. That makes so much sense to me. It was, and like I said earlier, that really speaks to me, because I remember when I had finally decided that I didn't believe in God anymore, and I spent so much time in my younger adulthood, like when I was in the Air Force, and I was a firm believer that if I didn't pray to God at night and thank him for the day that I had, and then if I didn't pray to him in the morning and say, please help me get through this day, that my day was going to absolutely fall apart. And I remember laying in my bed many, many, many nights and just thinking, am I going to get killed in my sleep because I don't pray? You know, and it's really
Well, I
stifling.
remember when you posted your initial blog post when you first decided, and you were scared to hit post.
Yep, I didn't want to hit enter.
Yeah, she was like, because it was funny because I didn't know what she was doing, and she's sitting in the middle of the living room floor, and she looks at me and she goes, "I'm afraid if I hit post here, lightning's going to strike me. I'm going to die." And it wasn't a joke, you know. People say that. I say it to tell that story. People laugh, but at that moment, Susie was not joking. No.
So I can totally identify with Anne and her. It's paralyzing.
Yes, and Susan, you send me an email and I'll connect you with her, because that's a pseudonym she's using.
Yeah. Okay.
But
Good.
she would love to hear from you.
I would love to talk to her, because I feel like I identify with her, because I felt that paralyzing feeling of what it's like to not believe and to think that you're supposed to be believing, and everything you've been ingrained with your entire life says you're supposed to believe this, and now you don't, and who's the one that's wrong, you know?
Yeah.
So I really enjoyed reading her essay. And that gives me great things to look forward to in the rest of the essays too, because I'm going to get to those. Well, as soon as I drive to work.
I'm going to give you a teaser on another one.
Oh yeah,
Go ahead.
Okay. Well, this is a young woman who was raised as a Jehovah's Witness, and she's the niece of a friend of mine. I started out by recruiting people I knew, and then I went to groups, and then I went to social media. But she's somebody I know well. And obviously, like most of us, were raised to say you don't have sex before you get married. And she's in college, and she's with this guy, and yeah, she has sex with him. And one of her friends rats on her to the church. And she is called before a set of 3 men, elders of the church. And the issue is, it's like excommunication. It's called something else.
Yeah, I remember that one. They put her on trial.
Yes, exactly. And later on, of course, she learns that one of the elders of this panel was having an affair with a married woman. So talk about hypocritical.
That is totally hypocritical.
She says, the fluorescent lights became unbearably bright as I felt my body stiffen, preparing for my reply. I stood my ground and continued to refute their offensive correlation of my love with the devil. Trying to reason and explain my logical feelings, as opposing as that sounds, to this tribunal of elders was futile, though. In this church, females were not given equal voice and stature. Therefore, for me to come into the room prepared for anything but groveling for forgiveness was tantamount to disrespect. I had naively presumed they would treat me with the respect and openness that I had been raised to believe I deserved. And in the heat of that moment, I did not recognize the danger I was in by voicing my thoughts. After a solid 2 hours of back and forth, they left the room for an agonizing 90 minutes to deliberate, during which time I sat alone in the back room of the Kingdom Hall, feeling confused, abandoned, and pissed. And that was the moment she said, I'm done.
Wow.
Yeah, that you'll enjoy that one. I mean, well, no, you won't enjoy it. You'll be enthralled by it, but you're not gonna, because you'll get mad. I mean, what they did to that poor girl. These three old men are like asking for details.
So Karen,
they're questioning her about this. I was disgusted.
I have a interesting story that kind of correlates to that one. But it's rather interesting. I grew up in a Protestant family. My mother is very Protestant. My mother is very religious, and her and my father divorced when I was 16, and she was seeing this man, and she was in love with this man, and she was practically living with this man, and he was married. And it was always like a big secret, I guess. And now I'm talking my mother. Like, my mother must have been at the time in her late 50s, and she's living in California, and she's going to this Baptist church in California. And she calls me. Now, this is when I was still a believer as well, but she calls me and she said, Jim and I can't go to our church anymore. And I said, what do you mean? Why? And she said, because we just got kicked out of the church. And I said, why? And she said, because they found out that we were having sex. And like, it baffles me, because I mean, he was like my stepdad, you know, he'd been around forever, and I thought it was something totally normal. But apparently, just the fact that someone had decided that they were having sex, and he was married. Now, my mom wasn't married anymore, but he was married, and they found out that he had a wife. Then she was getting kicked out of her Baptist church, and I think that's the last time she ever went to church.
Yeah.
I mean, she still
and the Catholic Church allows priests who commit crimes against children,
right?
Sexual abuse of children, to go to another parish. So look at the hypocrisy of it.
And men, exactly. Men can do what they want, but a woman does something like that, and oh my goodness, it's going to be the last thing you ever do.
Well,
and look at the Old Testament. Why would a man need to commit adultery? He could have as many wives as he wants.
Right.
Yeah, I'm gonna not say much here.
They never stoned a man for being an adulterer. You know, ever.
Or not often. Not as often, yeah. I don't know. I'm not saying anything. I'm just gonna be quiet here. It's wiser. No, I agree with you. I do. I agree with you. I think and it's because, and I've said this before, religion it slut shames women. It demeans women's sexuality. It always has. I don't know how many women I've talked to who got, when they were young girls, got the chewed piece of gum talk. Do you guys know what I'm talking about with that one?
No, that's new to me. What's that?
And these are women who got this in religion. Well, you know, this is a nice fresh piece of gum, and then when you chew it, now it's an old chewed up piece of gum. So if you're having sex, then when you go to get married, you're like this old chewed up piece of gum. All your flavor's gone.
God, I can't believe it.
Yeah, and I was like, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard in my life. Really. Look, sex is a physical activity, kind of like baseball. Okay? You don't wait until the World Series is about to happen to play baseball for the first time because you want to be your best.
Right.
That's
Exactly.
the dumbest
That's
thing. If
funny.
you want to get good at something, you do it.
That's funny.
right?
I like
Like playing the piano.
Exactly.
I like that one.
I do too.
Well, the Old Testament, well, not the Old Testament, but the whole study of history is interesting because I think that when we stopped being hunter-gatherers, because even hunter-gatherers today are much more egalitarian. But once we started agriculture and herding, we started to own property. And because we owned property, it was my property. I had to protect it against somebody else. And I wanted to pass that property on to my son. That's why virginity became so important, because I wanted a virgin when I was married to know that she wasn't pregnant with somebody else's child. And then while I was married to her, adultery was bad because I wanted to be sure that the child she had was mine.
Right.
So that's why I say it's all downhill from agriculture.
Well,
And
there's
we know
never a
back then the
question of
politics-
maternity, right? There's never a maternity question.
Well,
So,
exactly.
I mean, in
That's
truth,
pretty obvious.
and you know, you could probably even trace it back beyond that in it's evolutionary. You know, because obviously the objective of evolution is to pass one's genes on. That's what it is.
But the
so
subjugation
those
of women,
who,
I don't think is as prevalent
but
in
I would
a
say
hunter-gatherer society.
even then though, males that guarded their women better would have been more successful at procreation. Or males that were more possessive of their women would have been necessarily had a procreation advantage and passed their genes on. And then those would have been the examples for their sons. And again, they would have been the most successful to pass on. It just seems that way, that there's definitely some correlation there. Not that it's an excuse. I'm not making any excuses. I'm just saying.
No, certainly. But we also don't know when people figured out that the sex was causing her to be pregnant. I mean, that seems
That's
obvious to us, but you know, early on, they might have had multiple sexual partners and nobody paid any attention to it.
Well, yeah, there's some cultures that actually retained that. You know, they found, you know, tribes where it's not a big deal, not an issue. So, hold on, we got a visitor.
This noise that you're hearing.
Wave at the camera.
What about Grammy? Oh, look, she's looking at that camera.
This happens all the time. Down.
Sarah, come get her.
Our
please.
granddaughter's visiting.
Oh, it's like that. Remember the guy being interviewed and his two kids come into the room?
Yeah, that's exactly what it's like.
And
that's the camera.
she does what she wants.
Yep, she does
I love
what she
it.
wants.
How old is she?
She's 2.
She's 2.
Oh, precious age.
All right, sunshine.
So yeah, I knew she was going to break in
So-
at some point.
Can we go back to how messed up the Bible is with women, please? Because
Sure.
I really, as a matter of fact, it was Anne's little fundamentalist essay that. First of all, I'd like to thank Anne again because I wasn't really as clear on what a fundamentalist was. Because see, I don't have a lot of experience in all these terms and things. So when you say fundamentalist, I really wasn't aware of. I knew what it was, but I didn't have the label on it. So now I know the fundamentalist is, and I was like, okay, so the fundamentalist is the ultimate believer in the Bible. Can we please punch them all in the face? Because that's just stupid. From moment one, like, to now. I mean, like, way to totally subjugate a woman with Adam and Eve. Come on. It totally baffles me. It's like whoever wrote the Bible, Paul, right? You said Paul did it?
Paul wrote the New Testament, a lot of it.
Well, whoever wrote the Old Testament said, you know what? I don't really like women, so let's make them the bad guy.
And Paul wrote the really nasty misogynist stuff in the New Testament. He really did.
It's just crazy.
Let's take a look for a minute at the Adam and Eve story. Because one of the things about a goddess religion is she was associated very often in a number of cultures with a snake. because a snake burrows in the earth. They come up almost like they're rejuvenated. They shed their skin. They've got a new body. So it was kind of an awesome thing. And the goddess, like I said, in many cultures, and I have, in the presentation I do, I have slides of some of the statues, et cetera, that have survived with a snake. And we talked about earlier that Asherah, this Canaanite goddess, was associated with a tree. So what do we have in the Garden of Eden? We have a tree, we have a snake, and we have a woman. So what it does effectively is take all the symbols that Asherah and other goddesses had and make them bad.
Right.
So if you are trying on purpose to get rid of another religion and all of its symbols, what better way to do it than to start your book with putting them all down?
Right.
Putting down women, making them the cause of sin, having a tree that they're not supposed to touch, and a snake that's the bad guy.
That makes so much sense to me now.
Doesn't it?
It really does.
Doesn't it? It's almost like somebody made that up and wrote it intentionally as like a political assassination piece on another group.
Right.
Wow. It's almost like God doesn't exist.
Right.
I mean, it's,
well, I think if we don't understand that some of the messages in the Bible were intentionally putting down others, then we're really missing something big.
yeah. So, do you have another excerpt for us, or
There's two, okay.
let's do one
And
more?
this one is a African American woman, Ruth Marimo, who you can see on she's done a TED Talk, and it's very, very interesting. And she says, to be an African woman who walks away from believing is almost unheard of. And that is precisely why I think it is so necessary to talk about it. I walked away, and she means from religion, in order to open a world for my children that no one else in my family history had ever experienced before. And I couldn't be more proud. I had introduced my children to church when they were younger, and I've spent the last 2 years explaining my reasons for walking away from religion, including my wish for them to grow up open-minded and non-judgmental. I have explained how much I want them to grow up, knowing that only they are responsible for their own actions, that they have the power to decide for themselves what they want out of life, that their fate is not up to some God.
Wow.
And I think, there's several African-American atheist writers, Sikivu Hitchinson, Candace Gorham, I'm going to forget many of them, but Sikivu in particular talks about what it is like for African-Americans to leave the church, because it's such a social safety net for people.
Mm-hmm.
And I think one of the reasons women in particular don't leave church, because it's a sense of community. One of my other authors, Marsha Abelman, talks about leaving their church in Colorado Springs, she and her husband. Not a single friend of theirs ever had anything to do with them again. So if you're going to leave a church, you're asking people to give up that network, give up your friends. And that's one of the things that religion does, other than promising you paradise, or in the case of Islam, 72 virgins if you're a man. It gives you ritual, it gives you music, it gives you community. I mean, it's not stupid. It was built up on all of these things that tie people together.
Yeah, I've talked to a lot of my friends in Black non-believers, and the few African Americans that we do have in the activist atheist community, and that's one of the things they say is the biggest drawback, because you have a group that's already marginalized, and then they're going to get marginalized from their marginalized group, and that's a really tough step for them to take. It's brave. It's extremely brave for them to come out and be open atheists when, they've already got, in essence, two strikes against them in the eyes of a lot of people. And
unfortunately, because of the way some of these churches, particularly the mega churches, you know, you've got this pastor who's making all this money and making all these people give 10% when they can't really afford it. So it's really exploitation of the worst kind. I have one more that I'd like to share. This is a woman who was raised Mormon. And it was kind of interesting because her writing teacher had heard about the book I was doing and referred her to me. So yay for social media.
Yay for social media.
She was, at a time, she has a sister, and her sister, slept with the bishop's son. Bad, bad, bad. Of course, has anything happened to the bishop's son? No. But her grandmother has custody of them because of some insurance issues. And they decide that the girl has to go away. And they send her off to live with an aunt and uncle, and she's losing her best friend. She says, the tension in the car that horrible day was as thick as the gray fog outside. It felt as dark as a night with no moon. No one would speak of the purpose of this drive. But oh, I wanted to. I wanted to shout out that she wasn't a bad child. She was just acting like the teenager she was. 13. She was only 13. I wanted to tell them that they needed to love her unconditionally. I wanted to scream horrible names at them. She was in the car with her mother and grandmother. Tell them that they were traitors and liars. Who cared if she'd had sex? Who cared if it was with a bishop's son? Why couldn't his parents send him away? Why was Grandma's good standing more important than her love for my sister? Why wasn't our mom fighting for her daughter? Due to insurance issues, my mom had signed custody to my grandmother for what was supposed to be a year, but Grandma wouldn't sign it back. My grandma then used it to hurt and control my mom. I kept thinking, yell, Mama, yell, fight, please fight. Custody is just a piece of paper. Grandma has no right. God made you her mama.
Wow.
Whoa. That's harsh.
Yeah.
13.
And she is sent away to live with a non-uncle. And Michelle was devastated. This is her best friend. She was a few years younger than she was. And then she grew up for the rest of her time alone.
And again, it's the girl's fault, right?
Oh, it's always, it's always the girl's fault. Nothing happened to the bishop's son. Hello.
And it's got to be so trying on a young girl's psyche to be shamed into thinking she's some awful person just because she has regular feelings, you know? Just makes me crazy.
Yeah, and I guarantee you from a strictly hormonal sense, it was probably the bishop's son's idea. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, I went through that time and I never, ever would go through it again for anything. Because that's your life from the time you're like 13 until you're 25. That's like every third thought.
Every
Your
third
high
thought.
testosterone levels, yes.
Wow.
Yes.
It's horrible.
It's evolution. It's not your fault. No,
Well,
it's not your fault.
When you look back at it, you're like, oh man, wow, that was really weird. But you know, it's a decade and a half of your life sometimes. But anyway, this has been great, but we're gonna have to wrap things because
I have really enjoyed listening to excerpts of your book, and I can't wait to read the rest of it. And by all means, hook me up with your friend Anne. I'd like to share stories and hear her.
I'll make sure you got her email and everything.
All right.
But we'll in fact, is there anything that you would like to announce to the listeners?
Well,
Normally,
if people are interested in reading about women and religion, I have a blog. It's called The Faithless Feminist. And there's about 100 blog posts on there. And you can subscribe to that. Or you can just, you know, put a tag on it and look. I post about once a week. And I'm always looking for guest authors to give me a week off. So if anyone wants to write. And then I have the YouTube channel where I really just post presentations I've done. I'm not on that regularly. And of course, I have a Facebook page, The Faithless Feminist. Twitter is @Karen_Garst.
okay, you know, we'll go ahead and make sure we post links to all that on our show notes for the show.
Thank you so much for being our guest.
Well, it was my pleasure.
It has been phenomenal. And like I said, I'm really enjoying the book. I can't wait to finish it. And when you get this next book, I hope you'll come back and preview that for us.
I certainly will. And it's a book written mostly by women atheist authors from all walks, and it looks at the biology. It looks at Judaism. It looks at the impact on Hispanics, impact on African Americans and ex-Muslims. So it'll be about a year. I'm just getting the essays back, but we will definitely call you.
You have an invitation to come back anytime. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Take care, Karen.
Thanks.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that was fantastic.
It was.
I really enjoyed that. We don't have anybody in the chat room. We haven't had any calls, and so we might be doing away with this whole call-in thing. We might just go straight.
Yeah, we
YouTube.
might be
I'm
doing
not
away with
sure.
Blog Talk, right?
Yeah,
Isn't that
yeah,
what you
yeah.
were
We'll
talking
still
about?
keep posting on our feed because I clean up the audio and we do the feed, and that's great. But I hope that this goes out and people can hear it. If not, well, you'll definitely hear it on the one on the feed. But we have, and it's rather long. I know we usually do like a 15-minute Bible segment.
Well, do
This
we have
is closer to 40.
do we have anything in between this and that?
No, not really. Because just because of the length and the 2 interviews and one, this is what we're doing.
Well, sorry if you wanted to hear something else from us this week.
Well, you'll hear something else from us next
2
time we're
weeks,
on.
yep.
Yeah, that's right. Because that's how we.
Because Celia Gray said that she wants to hear us do some Trump bashing, and I know that always goes over good with our listeners.
Yeah.
and-
Yeah. I mean, everybody's Trump bashing these days.
right. So
You know?
we just
and we will. Oh, don't get
we
me
need
wrong.
to get back to it, and we really need to talk about John Oliver and getting sued by the freaking coal mining companies.
And we did talk. Well, okay, this is kind of related.
uh-huh.
You're going to hear one of the things that Dave wanted to talk to us about was the Johnson
Was
Amendment.
Bill Johnson?
Yeah, we're talking about my Johnson. No, the Johnson Amendment. My Johnson Amendment. Anyway, which is the biggest thing coming up in politics right now. Bar none, I'm saying it's the biggest damn thing. Because if you lose the Johnson Amendment, you're going to lose everything else.
So please listen to this.
So I don't care what else it is you care about, be it healthcare, be it equality, be it. You're going to lose all of that if you lose the Johnson Amendment.
Right. It's very important.
I keep saying this, but people don't listen.
People listen, honey. People listen.
Because I said it about the election. I said, we lose the election, we're going to lose a seat on the Supreme Court. What
The
happened?
people you like, listen.
What happened?
The people you like, listen.
So please do not make that doom and gloom prophecy come true. Anyway, but I talked about it a couple episodes, but I want you guys to listen to Dave talk about it because it's important. Also, he's going to give you a little preview of ACON 17, which sounds exciting. So let's just get right to that audio. Well, that sounds great on a live show, doesn't it?
I bet it does.
Oh boy.
So to the live audio,
I'm trying to get it to work.
Mr. Dave Silverman, guest Bar Atheist.
Yeah, there it is.
Dun, 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 dun,
Barroom, welcome to the mid-show break. Usually we do play the Bible segment for you here, but we have a special guest. We're recording early, so we're playing this for you on the live show. Our very first guest ever has returned to the Barroom. First guy to ever take up a stool in our Barroom. Dave Silverman, president of American Atheist, is here to talk to us about a few things. Dave, welcome to the Barroom again.
Hey, welcome. Thank you so much for having me back. I really appreciate you coming. You're having me on to talk about current events, and I'm really also proud to have my own stool at the Barroom to be the first one here, to be the first caller on to be the first participant on your show is an honor for me, and I'm glad you guys are still rocking and rolling. And I do consider myself to have my own stool at the Barroom.
You do. Your
You
name is
absolutely
engraved on it.
do.
Absolutely.
In fact, didn't we meet at the bar?
We did. American Atheist Convention in Austin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
2016.
Where Bill, I said, who is that guy? He's really nice.
Yeah, she had no idea who you were because she had just declared herself an atheist like 3 months before. So I dragged her all the way to Austin
Right.
to go to the convention. Why not? Right?
Yep. And you were like the first person I met. And I was like, wow, these atheists are pretty cool people.
Yeah.
She's like,
You know, the thing is, I've been in the movement for now 21 years, and I came to the movement. I first stepped into the movement because of the issues, but I stayed because of the people. I mean, I went to these conventions, and I want to talk about my convention, but really, the thing for me that got me to stay in the movement, got me to stay in American Atheists, was meeting people face to face and bonding with them and learning how much fun they are. I have friends now in the movement that I made on my first day of activism, and I'm talking several friends that I met on my first day of activism, and it's just really wonderful. A lot of times, people look online, and of course, the online community is much more volatile. It's much more well, it's anonymous, and you get a lot of the repercussions of anonymity when you go online. But in person, I just love the people that I meet at these atheist conventions. And when I went there, I fell in love with the movement, and I guess you guys did too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, that's great. Thank you so much for having me back on the show. I'm really happy to be here, and I'm looking forward to talking with you.
Yeah, you said you wanted to cover also the Johnson Amendment. Now, you may not know this, but we did a show recently called "Trump Wants to Take Away My Johnson." The show was huge. But for anyone who didn't listen to that, maybe not have caught that particular episode, can you just tell them, the listeners, what's the Johnson Amendment and why should we care?
Okay, so the Johnson Amendment is a very big deal, and people are not paying attention to it. And I'm speaking, and I'm going to use some very extreme language when I talk about it. And I want the point to come across that sometimes I use extreme language hyperbolically. We all do. I am not speaking hyperbolically when I talk about the Johnson Amendment. The Johnson Amendment has the ability and probably will completely change our political landscape. And it's a big problem, and I'm going to explain to you why. The Johnson Amendment quite simply says that 501c3s cannot politic from the pulpit. And that means that churches cannot politic, and it also means that 501c3s like American Atheists can't politic from the pulpit. And that's great. And the reason that that's good is because 501c3s are de facto extensions of the government. We serve the public good. That's why we're tax deductible. So if you look at the IRS code, and for the purpose of this discussion, there are lots of different 501c3 types, but for the purpose of this discussion, I'm going to lump them and say that there are two types: 501c3 religious and 501c3 non-religious. American Atheists and the Red Cross and the United Way and your soup kitchens down the street are 501c3 non-religious organizations. We're tax deductible. If you donate money to American Atheists, you get a tax deduction. But we have oversight by the government. Every year, American Atheists files our 1099 forms, our not 1099s, we file our forms, our income tax statements. So we tell the government how much money we make, how much money we spend on programs, how much money we spend on salaries, and it's all tax deductible, and it's all public knowledge. So if you want to know what the American Cross gross income is, you get to know. And if you want to know about American Atheists, you get to know. Just as an aside, American Atheists goes further than that. We willingly get audited every year by an independent auditing firm, and we publish those audits online so that you can tell where our money comes in and where our money goes out. And that's important because, again, we are de facto extensions of the government. 501c3 religious organizations do not do that. A 501c3 religious organization, aka a church, can take in an untold amount of money, spend it any way they please, and never report. In fact, they never do. The times the ability for churches to be audited is almost nil. In order to be audited by the IRS, you have to have a director level approval to audit, and it's almost never done. When one church was audited and they found financial impropriety, the findings were thrown out because the person who found the impropriety was too junior. He was too low on the totem pole in the IRS. And the last thing I want to understand is that when you make a $10,000 donation to American Atheists, we have to report that to the government, which means that officially I cannot tell you that a $10,000 donation to American Atheists would be anonymous, because we actually do have to report it to the government. And so I can't tell you it's anonymous. However, churches don't report that. Churches say you can donate $10 million to a church and have it be completely anonymous. The government never finds out, except for the fact that you declare it on your income tax and you get a tax deduction. Okay. 501c3 non-religious organizations have to file all these forms. We have accountability. Everything has to be above board. We're subject to audit, and our donations above $10,000 are reported and not public. 501c3 religious organizations are tax deductible, but there's no oversight, there's no filing the forms, and there's no declaration of major donors by the church. Okay, the Johnson Amendment stops politicians, stops the nonprofit organizations from politicking. Now, President Trump has already issued an order saying, we're not really going to push this. We're going to use minimal tendencies to protect this. And that probably didn't do anything, because they were already not doing much. But we are looking at a situation now where the Johnson Amendment might be actually repealed. And it would be repealed via a congressional action, probably as a rider to some other bill. Before the Johnson Amendment was added, we didn't have something called Citizens United. Citizens United changed politics. Citizens United made it so that corporations are people and money is speech. So corporations are people and money is speech, and speech is free. So corporations can have political leanings, corporations can have religious opinions, and corporations can put as much money into politics as they see fit. This created super PACs. These two independent things created two independent entities. The religious people, the religious organizations can take in money anonymously and not report and not politic. And on the other hand, super PACs exist. They're companies with religious opinions, with political opinions, and they have unlimited money. If the Johnson Amendment is repealed, you're going to have churches on the side of the road that can act like super PACs.
Right.
Okay.
To me, it seems like what you're saying. This would effectively nullify all campaign finance rules.
Well, it would negate a lot of them. It would circumvent a lot of them. The super PACs would go out of business. Okay, super PACs would either go out of business or become very, very small, because, and again, I'm not speaking hyperbolically. This is economics. If you have $10 million and you want to support the Trump campaign, you'll have a choice. You can donate it to a Trump super PAC, or you can donate it to a Trump supporting church on the corner. If you donate to the Trump supporting church on the corner, you get anonymity and, most importantly, a $10 million tax deduction. Okay? You're going to go that way. The church is going to take your $10 million and they're going to tell you that they spent that $10 million on Trump. And they'll probably spend some money on Trump. But guess what? They can spend $5 million on Trump and tell you it was all spent on Trump, pocket the rest, and they never report their forms. So you will never know. You don't have the right to know. So the amount of money going into churches will be the amount of money going into super PACs. Super PACs will effectively go out of business because they will have no competitive advantage over churches.
Oh,
Everybody will go to churches because they're tax deductible and anonymous.
and most importantly, we the people will have no way of knowing who donated what to whom. Right now, I can
None.
look up a donor list for a super PAC or a candidate because they're required to say where their money came from.
And it's if you need to really think about this, because this is, again, going to happen because economics is a thing. They're all going to go to churches. The churches will make a ton of money, and most importantly, perhaps most importantly, I don't know what's the most important part here, but all of a sudden, almost all of the money flooding into politics now comes through super PACs, will come through churches. So where is the impetus to protect the separation of church and state? Where?
Yeah.
If all of your money, even Democrats or Republicans, if all of your money or such huge amounts of your money is coming in through religious organizations, where is your impetus to support the separation of church and state? Where is your impetus to support non-theistic people or atheistic people? Where is your impetus to support equality of religion? If so much of your money is coming in through Christian churches, why should you care about the Jews or the Muslims or the atheists? This is going to completely change our political landscape more than Citizens United did.
Well,
Because this is going to combine with Citizens United and make churches the new super PACs. And it is a scary, scary reality that we are facing. And they are sneaking it in, and they are doing it without fanfare because people don't understand, because people don't really realize it. And the majority of religious organizations do not want this to happen. Why? Because the temptation will be stupid. The temptation will be off the charts. If you are a pastor, let's just pretend you're a pastor at a small church and your small church is struggling. Okay? Let's just say that you're a pastor, you make barely enough to live. You're just one of the stereotypical good guy pastors trying to do your thing, trying to keep your church alive, trying to keep your income in reality. And all of a sudden you have the ability to take a $10 million donation to support Trump, and you don't have any oversight on how you use that money. None.
wow.
Right.
What can you do with that money? You can put $9 million into Trump, and all of a sudden you can keep the rest. You can keep the rest. Put $5 million into Trump. You can keep the rest. Nobody will ever know. So the impact that repealing of the Johnson Amendment will have, combined with, so it's Citizens United, combined with lack of oversight in religion, will make churches the new super PACs, will make churches the new power players in politics. It will decimate our political system because everything will come through churches. Churches will become de facto extensions of the political movement.
I have to say, I don't know if you've read the book, but have you ever read the book Christian Nation?
Yeah.
No, I have not.
It's a fictional book, but it paints a dystopian future where Barack Obama lost the presidency and it takes us off in a different. And in any event, it's how the United States might become a Christian theocracy.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough, the first thing that happened was they repealed the Johnson Amendment.
Wow.
I mean, so I recommend. First of all, it's a darn good book.
It's a good book,
but it's very realistic in how something could happen in stages over years.
Yeah.
Oh, and
we're
just as an aside, ironically, one of the things that happened in that book was Hillary Clinton lost the 2016 presidential election.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was written about 10 years ago.
That's a scary thing.
But
sure.
I mean, if money is power, we don't like it, but like you often say, Dave, the truth is the truth. You can't hide from it. Money is power. If you allow unchecked money in politics, anything could happen.
Well, it seems also that it kind of mushes the lines of, and it's really bipartisan, because any political affiliation that's going to give money to a church and expecting the church to support their candidate or whatever, they could be doing whatever they wanted with that money and not supporting them at all.
Right. And if you want to get your theistic friends on board, remind them that Al-Qaeda could donate to a mosque and support a candidate here in the United States.
Yeah. I mean, we're talking. I mean, there's a lot of money in oil. Okay, and there's a lot of money in mosques, and it's not even a tiny reach to say, okay, the Islamists would funnel millions, nay billions of anonymous money into mosques here in America who would promote their religion.
Yep.
And you know, it's
their
a
candidate
mess.
that stands behind their religious principles.
Yeah. And again, the money would be kept. Some money would be they would not have any oversight. So some of those mullahs would make a tremendous amount of money. Some of those imams would make a tremendous amount of money. The corruption that's in religion right now is rampant. It's huge because there's no oversight. And we're about to add that add that unrestricted income stream, unaudited, unlooked at income stream onto the political process. And they're pretending it's a good thing. It's a very, very scary thing. And it is something that everybody should be alarmed about. It is something that American Atheist is going to fight tooth and nail. It is something that, I mean, American Atheist was forged in battle. Okay, we were born in 1963 by Madalyn Murray O'Hair. I cut my teeth in American Atheist. I've been here for 21 years. We are ready for the battle, but it's going to be a battle. And it's a very, very important battle. It wasn't the battle that anybody expected to have to take. But this is something that I want your listeners to take very, very seriously, because we are looking at something that will change our political landscape potentially for the rest of our lives.
What can our listeners, the regular, average, everyday Joe barroom, do to help out this fight?
So the first thing that we need to do is make sure you're members of American Atheist. Donate to American Atheist. I know, because, you know, people say, well, what do you do? And I say donate, and they say, oh, you're just asking for money. Well, yes, we're asking for money. The amount of legal bills that we have and the amount of legal effort that we're going to be putting into the system is going to be huge. It is just going to be huge. So I need your help. I need people to help donate. I need people to put their congressman on speed dial. Put your congressman on speed dial and your senators on speed dial, and talk to them and call them about the Johnson Amendment. Now, what's going to happen is very likely that they're going to put this Johnson Amendment repeal on a rider on maybe the budget bill or something, and we don't know where. But when it happens, please watch the American Atheist Twitter and the American Atheist Facebook, and we will let you know who to call and when, because it's got to go through committee. So we have to fire all of our guns at this thing, and make sure that they know that not only do we oppose it, most religious organizations oppose this because they know it will corrupt the hell out of their religion. So this is a great opportunity for atheists and religious people to work together. To oppose this. I want religion to die, but I don't want religion to die because it becomes a piece of the American political system. I want religion to die because it's wrong and it's a scam and it's a con, and I want people to realize that because they learn. I do not want religion to die because it just melds into the political system and then dissolves into politics and ruins our country. And so we have to, this is a great opportunity for intersectionality. This is a great opportunity to work across lines, and to work with religious organizations to try and defeat this horrible, horrible idea that nobody quite understands. So donate to American Atheists. Yes, it's atheists.org. But also this is probably the most important issue of the year right now. This is more important than Betsy DeVos. And Betsy DeVos is really big and important, and the RFRA is really big and important. But killing the American political system and making the religious institutions a tax-free, anonymous vehicle for dark money to funnel into politics is just something that we need to fight tooth and nail all the time. So please get your congressman on speed dial. They do need to hear from you. When you call, tell them that you're an independent, and tell them that you support the Johnson Amendment and that you need to keep religion and church and state separate. And that's the best thing that we can tell. So just be prepared. Follow American Atheist on Twitter. Follow me on Twitter. That's at American Atheist and at Mr. Atheist Pants. We will let you know when we're watching it like a hawk. And when it comes up, we'll let you know, and we'll let you know who to call, and we're going to need everybody to help out.
Awesome. And yeah, just to echo what Dave just said, if you're on the fence here, it's going to be a lot less expensive to donate now than it will be to try to compete with this massive amount of money that'll be flowing into politics if we lose this.
Yep.
I mean, yeah, so many times I ask for money. I ask for money every time I get on a podcast, and so many times people say, "Oh, well, you ask for money. It's just like religion." Well, guess what? These things cost money, and the fact that religion asks for money doesn't mean. I mean, ACLU asks for money, politicians ask for money, Greenpeace asks for money, but we have our financials audited every year voluntarily. American Atheist has no debt. We have 6 employees. We have a building with no mortgage. We have solar panels on the roof. We are an extremely efficient organization. And if you'd like to see how efficiently we spend our money, I will send you the audited results of all of our financials for the past several years, because we do it every year, because we need you to know that when you donate to American Atheist, you're buying activism. That's what you're buying. That's what you're getting. You're buying activism from an extremely lean and efficient organization that fights tooth and nail for the good of all humanity. And that's really what we're doing. And so please join American Atheists. We have a donor match actually going on right now. If you go to atheists.org/monthly, if you can donate $10, $20, $50 a month, that's doubled for the first year. So it's a great way for you to help out American Atheists and to help us fight this really huge attack on us, on all of us. And so that's what I wanted to say about the Johnson Amendment. And thank you for letting me air that.
No problem.
Do you have any questions, either of you?
No, I just want to thank you for saying that, because like I said, we did an episode about 2 episodes ago about it, but it means something when you come on and say the same thing that I was saying. This is important. This needs to be addressed. But to more fun stuff. You guys do fun stuff, right?
They do.
Because we've been
to some fun stuff
a couple times, and it's fun. So what about this next convention? Is it going to be fun like the last ones were?
I strive to make the American Atheist National Convention the largest and most fun atheist event in America. And so far, I believe every year we've been successful. You came to us in 2013. That was in Austin, Texas. And I remember several things about Austin. The first thing I remember about Austin is that I told the hotel, "You need to stock up on booze." And they said, "Yes, sir, we will stock up on booze." And I said, "No. You don't hear me. We need you to stock up on booze." And they said, "Yes, sir, we will stock up on booze." And they were out of booze on Saturday night.
Wow.
and they were completely out of Johnny Walker Black. And it was amusing to me. But that's because, and this is just a funny thing. It's a function of the people that come to an American Atheist Convention. I'm going to tell you about all the wonderful speakers that we have at this convention, and I'm going to tell you that a whole bunch of people will not attend most of these speakers because everybody's going to be hanging out in the bar drinking. And it's going to be a really social, happy time. We've got lots of social time involved in it. But let me tell you who's coming. First of all, we've got Alan Cooperman. He's the director of religion research at Pew Research. Okay, he's going to tell us about the rise of atheism on a national level. He's an expert on religion's role in politics, and he is going to be talking about how our demographic is growing. And this is something that's really interesting because they just came out with that new report that said we were about 26% of the population. Just as an aside, a year before that, I published a book called Fighting God, in which I said, hey, we're about 27% of the population by my calculations.
You did. I can verify. I just, since you contacted me, I re-listened to your book. I have it on audio, and yes, you did. You called that one.
I totally called it. And I am taking credit for that stuff. We've got coming on Senator Anne Brucille, who is a member of the British Parliament, who is a fan of ours. And she is the chair of the Out of the Blue LGBTQ network of her party in Belgium, which is exciting. And she'll be attending via Skype. In person, Annie Pearl Avery. And for those of you who come to American Atheist conventions, I like to bring in people from outside the movement. I'm all about bringing in people from outside the movement, like Mr. Cooperman, like Senator Brucille. Annie Pearl Avery is a civil rights activist from the 60s. From the 60s, she was one of the only people. Actually, she was the only person arrested in Selma during the big protest in Selma. And she is coming. She is an atheist. She is coming to talk about her civil rights struggle. Tony Pinn is coming. Aaron Ra is coming. Tony Pinn is coming to talk about his new book, which I haven't read, but I've heard it's very important, about people of color in atheism. And I'm really looking forward to hearing what he has to say of it. I'm also looking forward to talking to Aaron Ra, one of my good friends who is running for state senate in Texas. Of course, James Randi is coming. I'm looking forward to seeing him. Who knows? I'm just honored that he's coming. I think he's like 130 years old now. So I don't know how many more conventions he's coming to, but he's coming to ours. The star of our convention is going to be a total eclipse of the sun. Okay. And this is why the convention is in August. It's in August 19th through 21st, which is a Saturday to a Monday. And why is it going Saturday to a Monday? Because Monday we're having a total eclipse of the sun, right? And the hotel is right in the path of totality. We're bringing in Dr. Cyan Proctor, a NASA scientist and educator, and she is going to narrate the eclipse. She is a person who spent time in the Mars Simulating Project, and she's a science educator from NASA. And I'm really, really glad to have her come and narrate the eclipse. Ian Harris is our master of ceremonies, and he's also a comedian. He's going to be doing some very funny things on Saturday night, and he's going to be opening for a sequel. Frank and Trace from Mystery Science Theater are coming back to the convention.
Awesome.
And they are going to be riffing God's Not Dead 2 live on stage.
We caught that in Memphis.
Yeah, we went to Memphis
fantastic.
too.
That's
the funniest shit ever. I love that. I'm sorry. Can I swear on your show?
Go ahead. Yeah.
That was the funny. I mean, it was really. It's such a thrill because I'm an MST3K fan from way back. I also liked Hercules, The Legendary Journey. So I was able to, and I don't know if you know this, for God's Not Dead, Hercules, I call him Hercules. Kevin Sorbo said he looked at the president of an atheist organization that he saw on television in order to get some of his lines as the big bad guy from the big bad atheist in God's Not Dead. And so I was able to sit, and some of the lines that he gave were clearly my lines.
That's cool.
They were clearly my lines. They were my words. And so I was able to sit in this location and hear Hercules say my words while Frank and Trace from Mystery Science Theater riffed on it live. It was a really great experience. So they're coming back. Frank and Trace are going to be there to make us all laugh. We've got some fantastic board members at American Atheists, and they're going to be coming. Mandisa Thomas from Black Nonbelievers, Marsha Botzer, who is from the lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender community. Matt Dillahunty, my good friend, is coming. Mark Gura, the president or the vice president of Atheist Alliance of America, will be coming. Seth Andrews will be there. We got the Trollingers will be there. Now, the Trollingers wrote a book about it's called Writing America at the Creation Museum. So these people went to the Creation Museum and they wrote a book about the Creation Museum from an atheistic perspective. And it's really good and really interesting. Also coming, Yvette D'Entremont, Zarin Faraz is a blogger from Bangladesh. She's going to be coming in. She's a person who's on the lam. She's got death threats against her. She's afraid to go in. She's speaking. She's seeking help and getting asylum. I'm able to make an announcement because not too many people know this. We're going to have a movie. Are you familiar with the Netflix movie, The Most Hated Woman in America?
Yes.
We're going to be showing that movie at our convention. And you may know that movie paints Madeleine Murray O'Hair in a less than positive light. Well, we're having the director and co-writer of that movie on stage during the movie to talk about how much of that was false.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Yeah. He's going to be coming up and he's going to be talking about how all that stuff is false and how he made the movie in 18 days and how he made it on a real small budget. And he is going to come in and we're going to show the movie and he's going to talk after the movie about what parts of it are false, including all the bad stuff. Like all the stuff about the second set of books in that movie was completely false.
Huh.
Okay, it was all completely false. And he's going to explain why he did that and why that movie is what it is. So we're actually going to show the movie and the director and co-writer of the movie will be there to talk about the truth and the falseness behind that movie. It's going to be really interesting. We're going to have a Cards Against Humanity tournament. We're going to have a dinner. We're going to have fun. And so, like I said, all of these great speakers, it's a fantastic speaker lineup. And I'm really, really happy about it. And it's diverse and it's interesting and it's people that you're not going to hear at other conventions. I mean, you're not going to hear Annie Pearl Avery at another convention. You're not going to hear Zarin Faraz at another convention. You're not going to hear Alan Cooperman. You're not going to hear a whole bunch of these speakers at other conventions. And we're going to have a total eclipse of the sun.
That's awesome.
It's going to be so much fun. I will say that the first and second hotels are already sold out. So we have overflow hotels with free shuttles all over the place. The website is atheists.org/convention2017. And you need to come. This is going to be, it's potentially going to be one of the, well, it will be one of the conventions that you remember for the rest of your life. You're not going to come away from the convention with a total eclipse of the sun and forget it. And one of the things that I love about our conventions is that they're memorable. They're things that you take home, memories that you'll remember forever. And we strive for that. And that's why I'm hoping to see everybody at the convention where we can celebrate the total eclipse of the sun together. And I've always wanted to see a total eclipse of the sun. Haven't you?
Yeah. And this is Charleston, South Carolina, because I don't think we mentioned the place yet.
Yeah, Charleston, South Carolina. They have a good airport there. We've got a great hotel. In fact, we've got a bunch of different hotels. And like I said, we've got overflow hotels. Everybody's got shuttles. Everything's free. Just come on. Well, all the shuttles are free, rather. Come to the convention. We have done very well in keeping our costs for the convention down this year, so it's not a very expensive convention. Please come and enjoy. And if you've never come to an atheist convention before, this is the one you want to come to because it's going to be a lot of fun.
Right.
And I'm really looking forward to it. I'm kind of frothing at the mouth for it right now, even as we speak.
For our listeners, this might mean something to them. If you've ever wanted to hang out in an actual bar with Bill and Susie, not only just Bill and Susie, but Bobby Carey and Ashley Carey from No Religion Required.
And Dave Silverman.
If you look around
That's
in
right.
the bar, you might find.
Yes.
You
Yes,
know,
yes, yes.
I do believe we're going to be hanging out with Bobby and Ashley there because they don't live too far from there. So I believe they're going to be attending. So,
And I thought it was really interesting how you mentioned in the beginning that people will be hanging out and, you're going to have all these awesome speakers. And we all love the opportunity to see the awesome speakers. And that's why you usually do a DVD.
Yeah.
Because for all of us people who get a little too much to drink at night and can't wake up in the morning, there's that DVD afterward.
Yeah, and you know,
You
I mean,
gotta
I
do
can
both.
tell you
You gotta
stories.
go
I
and buy
remember,
the DVD.
Right.
Yeah.
I think it was 1998. I was a young state director, and I think I think it was 98. And if I remember correctly, it was Washington D.C. And I got together with a whole bunch of other state directors, and like I said, we had it was just bonding, bonding, bonding. So we went out drinking. We closed down the bar in one state. We all piled into cabs, went to another state, and closed down the bars in that state because we were right on the tri-state area.
Yep.
And then we came back and we made it. And I remember my vice president, I don't know if I should be saying this, my vice president, Kathy Johnson, and I were both state directors at the time. And the program, we were both taking our state directorship very seriously. We wanted our volunteerism very seriously. And we stayed out, and it must have been 4 a.m., 5 a.m. before we got back. We made it to our first panel, 9 a.m. the next morning, reeking of booze, half asleep, wearing sunglasses inside. And son of a gun, the first speaker was secularists on sobriety, talking about talking about the need to stay sober.
Oh my
And
goodness.
it was, I mean, you know, it was just so bonding. It was great. So this is where you come to meet the best of the movement, the most fun people in the movement, the happiest of the movement. And we have a very, very positive atmosphere, and we're bringing in people who are going to bring in lots of things to think about, lots of things to learn, and lots of things to laugh about. I mean, Ian Harris and Frank and Trace are going to make you laugh like crazy. These are funny folks.
Yeah, we're looking forward to
and
it.
that's going to be a lot of fun. I hope everybody comes.
All right. Well, look, first of all, thank you for coming back in the bar room. This has been great. I wish we
my
had
pleasure.
more time, and we're going to have you back sometime when we're doing the live show, because we have people call in and ask questions sometimes on that.
Oh,
Yeah,
absolutely,
that'd
Bill.
be
I'd
cool.
love to do it. And I really appreciate you both having me back on the show. Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Susie. I really appreciate it. Again, the website is atheists.org, atheists.org. That's where you can donate. If you go to atheists.org/monthly, you can join on a monthly program, and your donations get matched for the first year. Your monthly donations get matched for the first year. Atheists.org/convention 2017 is where you can sign up and find out about the convention and sign up. And oh, by the way, I wrote a book. My book is called Fighting God. It's doing very well, and it's been very well received. And you can buy that book signed at atheists.org or on Amazon. I hear people like it.
Yeah, and also the Audible version is excellent. You read it yourself.
I do, and I'll give you just a funny quip about that. When I was reading that book, when I was reading that audiobook, I got myself angry a couple times. And so if you read the paper book while you're listening to the audiobook, you'll see that the audiobook has extra swears. Okay, and that's exactly what happened. I was reading the audiobook. I was getting myself angry about and I just and the producer was just laughing, and all that stuff is in. And so, just to let you know that if you read the audiobook, if you hear if you hear any expletives, they're not in the regular book. That's what I call bonus content.
Absolutely.
That's awesome. Well, thanks for joining us. And if you didn't catch any of those websites, don't worry. Check our show notes, because I'm going to put them all up there. Clickable links, so you can just click and go to any of those websites that Dave just mentioned.
Thanks a lot for joining us, Dave.
Thank you, Bill and Susie, for having me back on. I look forward to coming back on again.
Okay. Well, now we're live again.
Woohoo!
Now we're live.
It's been a very non-live show.
Well, part of it was non-live, but yeah, I understand we also had friggin' audio problems again.
Yeah, so if anybody listening to Dead Space,
Yeah,
just
I'll bet if anybody was on the Dead Space part, they're not listening still.
right. Well, download the show.
Because I don't know if Dave's interview went out on Blog Talk either.
Just download the show.
Yeah,
It-
just
the recording will be there.
download the show from any web catcher, but not from Blog Talk because it's going to be crappy on Blog. Well, no, I'll probably upload a new copy. But it went out on YouTube just fine.
Right? I love my YouTubers.
So, yeah, stay tuned to our Facebook and Twitter feeds because we may not do this Blog Talk thing anymore because I'm paying for it and it's just not working, and I don't need the hassle really. But we'll continue to do the YouTube so we can still do the live show. So it'll go out live on YouTube, and then we'll, of course, still continue to go on our normal podcast feed. We'll put that out.
Because we just do that.
Because we just do that. Because we love you people so much. But you won't be able to call in, so we'll have to figure out some other way to communicate.
Nobody's called in anyway.
Yeah, I know, but I want to have a way for people to reach us. Maybe what we'll do is we'll you can have the Facebook page up in front of you,
babe. We
and
have
they
the
can
call-in
comment.
line where they can leave messages,
or they can tweet. You can put.
We
those
have
up.
that leave messages line.
That's true, but that's after the fact. So just in case,
Or before the
we'll
fact.
figure something out. So in case you're the one person who's listening live and
That
you
likes
want to
to
say
call.
something, or you want to get something in, but maybe we'll put the Twitter feed up on your computer, and then you could just somebody tweets at us, we'll know.
Yeah.
Yeah, and maybe Facebook, they could just comment on the post where we announce it,
Right.
and then we'll see that.
We'll
so
see.
that maybe, I don't know, we'll figure something out. What the hell? Anyway, it all worked. Susie,
What?
tell them about our contact info.
Again?
Every show, it's your job. You got one job. You got one fucking job.
But it's so hard to remember. All
It's
right.
the same every week. It doesn't change.
So we both have email addresses. Bill's email is bill.robbins819@gmail.com. Mine is sberry@yahoo.com. Don't email me. Email him.
Yeah, complaints go to her.
Twitter is all Bill. If you want to listen to Bill argue on Twitter, it's at Schaefer079. If you would like to get updates from the show from Twitter, it's at Barroom Atheist. Our Facebook page, of course, is always available. That would be Barroom Atheist. We also have our own separate Facebook pages. Bill's is Bill Robbins and mine is Susie Robbins. Not real hard to figure out.
There you go.
I did pretty good that time. Holy shit.
Not too bad, baby. Not too bad. Is there anything else before we,
No, it's been a very silent show.
shut things down and whatever?
Thank you again to Karen Gerst for coming on and interviewing with us about her book. Everybody go check out her book. I am listening to it right now. It's an amazing book. It really is. If you're interested in women beyond belief, women in atheism, it's a good book for you.
Well, and especially because women's voices are underreported,
Right.
and like I said, I've gotten a lot of perspective out of it. I think every dude should listen.
And
Every dude out there, you should listen to this.
if you haven't joined American Atheists,
You should do that.
you should join American Atheists. I know some people aren't fans of Dave Silverman, but hey, American Atheists is really,
I am.
they are gunning for the voice of the atheists.
I'm a
So
Dave Silverman fan.
I think that everybody should go out and become a member of American Atheists. Even the smallest donation will help out our cause. So thank you to Karen and to Dave for doing their interviews with us today. And that's all I got, babe.
That's all.
That's it.
Well, with that, I'm Bill.
And I'm Susie.
Stay reasonable, my friends.
You're pissing me off, man. Fuck. I bang on the door, but you won't let me in. 'Cause you're sick and tired of me drinking up gin. Locked all the doors from the front to the back. And left me a note telling me I should pack. I walk in the bar and the fellas all cheer. Order me up a whiskey and beer. You ask me why I'm writing this poem. Call it tavern, but I call it home. Fuck you, I'm drunk. Fuck you, I'm drunk. giving me an option. You say I must choose between you and the liquor, then I'll take the booze. Jumping on Western down to the south side, where I'll sit down and exercise my Irish pride. Fuck you, I'm drunk. Fuck you, I'm drunk. Pour my beer down the sink. I've got more in the trunk. Fuck you, I'm drunk. Fuck you, I'm drunk. And I'm going to be drunk till the next time I cry.
Get off that stage.
Thank you for using Blog Talk Radio. Goodbye.